delighted to welcome Sharon Spice to the podcast this week. Sharon is Chief Marketing and Value Officer at Green Park People Consultancy and has over 25 years of marketing, brand and business experience across sectors including professional services, civil engineering, technology startups and asset rental and finance. She's also led a very international career, working in Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Europe and Greater China. Alongside her marketing leadership roles, Sharon has also led several equality, diversity and inclusion initiatives and chaired a charity called Access Accountancy, which helps people from lower socio-economic backgrounds to gain work experience in professional service firms. She's a member of the Institute of Directors and Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. And Sharon's passionate about bringing companies and people together to collaborate and describes herself as a lifelong learner. Welcome to the Business of Being Brilliant, Sharon.
Hi, Helen. Thank you for inviting me along and delighted to be here today.
Oh, it's great to welcome you to the podcast. And you're happily settled in the UK now, but of your many extended periods abroad, could you pick a favourite location that you've worked in? That was quite a list that I've just shared.
Wonderful question. I think for me, Vietnam was
Wow.
probably one of my favourite places. It was full of surprises and it was definitely not what I expected. And I felt at home actually. It's one of those places where I went to and when I got off the plane, I almost relaxed instantly. So a great place to go. I've never been there on holiday, which is probably the thing I need to do next, but I worked there. I think I've done about 6 or 7 trips there.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I've not been there myself, but I know other people that have for holidays and loved it. But it sounds like you really enjoyed the experience of working there as well. And in terms of that travel across different countries and all those different industries you've worked in, what led your decisions to follow that path, I guess? What got you started in a career in global marketing, and what were some of the, I guess, key points for you along the way?
I think for me, it wasn't something that I had actually identified I would like to do. I've always loved traveling, but that's probably more for a kind of personal and for holiday reasons. And I just felt there's a huge world out there, but I've never considered it in a work capacity. And it came about by luck. I'm going to use that word very purposefully because for me, I was working at the ICW at the time and I was given the opportunity to take on a brand new global role. And I'll be really honest with you, I was incredibly nervous about doing that job. I didn't have any experience in the global arena. And at the time I felt, was I good enough? Was I the right person to take that role on? And I think for me, I decided that I needed to get really comfortable with being really uncomfortable. So I agreed to take the role and it was probably one of the best things I ever did.
That's so interesting to hear. And sorry, why was it? Yeah.
Well, I think for me, one of my first trips, I had a 12-hour flight, got off the plane. In the taxi, I was meted and greeted by some of my colleagues in one of our offices, and the first thing they said is, "We need to get you straight to the hotel, drop your bags off, and then you need to go and do a presentation in front of about 400 or 500 people." And I had about 10 minutes to prepare myself, and I was then wheeled into this huge, really impressive grand room and told that I needed to go to the front and go and introduce myself and then quickly get up on stage because I was late. I didn't realise I was late. I didn't even know I was doing the presentation at the time. And I remember standing up there and thinking, oh my goodness. And I have to say, definitely had a imposter syndrome moment at that point. And looking out on the office, at the audience and seeing all these faces looking back at me. And I remember thinking, goodness, I've got 2 choices here. I either just fail at this and try and rush through what I have to say and get off this stage as quickly as possible, or I show that I have the right to be here in front of all these people. They've come here to hear a number of speakers, and I don't want them to go away feeling bad that I, left a really bad impression, not only the brand that I was working for at the time, but also of myself. So I went down the second route and give it my all, and I absolutely loved it. So I came off the stage, and I think I had this I guess endorphins kind of kicked in, and I just thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe I've just done that. And I would never have thought I could do that, as well as the other thing. And I think with that became more of those experiences. So especially internationally, I remember going into a university. I think I was probably my third visit away, and I was told there'd be a few students that I would go meet in my role, and I would just get to have a bit of a chat about my career. And I walked into this room, and I think there were probably, I would say, about 1,000 students. And they were all from they were all from a particular program of work around accountancy and finance, and they just all stared at me, and they were waiting for me to share lots of wisdom. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm in another situation now. I've got all these faces staring at me. But it was wonderful. So I did my presentation, and at the end, I learned that that's kind of a sign what you do. So they all want, a lot of the students came up and asked if they could get their photo taken with me. So I agreed to that, and then I looked out the room, and there's this massive long queue of students who were waiting to have the photo taken with me.
Wow.
And they showed me how to say hello, how to say goodbye, pleased to meet you. So they were all teaching me things. And I just thought, gosh, this is such an amazing experience. I'm so lucky. Because I would never have got that if I'd have not taken that job opportunity, that very first offer that I got. So, yeah, very fortunate. And then it went from there,
Oh,
really. I learned about
yeah.
cultures, I learned different languages, and to make sure I could get by. Um, and I really embedded myself in that role because I felt I was just learning tons. So, for me, it was a personal opportunity to explore what I was capable of, but also enabled me to have so much exposure to cultures, experiences that I never in a million years thought I would have.
Yes, and wonderful to hear that you were just very, very glad you took on that role, even when your instincts were saying, or your imposter syndrome was saying, no, you're not ready for it. And hearing you describe that situation of getting off the plane and being told you've got a presentation and going into that very, very daunting setting, I could feel my stress levels rise listening to that. So I can't even begin to imagine what that must have felt like for you. And, in terms of getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, you've just given two lovely examples of situations that felt very uncomfortable initially for you, and how you responded. And I guess I'm curious, for people listening, is it just kind of a mindset thing that helps you overcome that? I mean, what I'm hearing you say is that love of learning really, was the key for you to really leaning into those experiences and trying not to be overwhelmed by them, because actually you just wanted to see what would happen, really, if you went for it, and if you were just you doing your thing and telling your imposter syndrome to just pipe down for a bit. What I mean, is it
Yeah.
is it just as simple as kind of giving yourself a good pep talk, but or does other things help you when you're feeling uncomfortable?
I think it's for me, I think when I was younger, I didn't feel I was very academic. I didn't feel I would probably end up in the role, certainly that I'm in now. And I remember someone telling me when I was at school that I probably wasn't very academic and probably wasn't able to do some of the things that I at that time thought I could do, I would love to have done. And something clicked in me at that moment in time where I thought, I don't want anyone to ever tell me I can't do something. I need to decide that for myself. And I was only probably about 14 when that happened. Um, and I think that very moment in time, and I think people always say there is a moment in time that changes the way they do something, whatever in whatever situation that might be. That was mine. So I know if someone says to me, I need you to go and do this, and I think, well, I've never done that before. The first thing I think, well, if you think I can do that, then you obviously see something in me that enables me to actually deliver what you just asked me to do. And then I think, well, what's the worst that could happen? I'm not, I'm going to make sure I do my prep. I'm going to make sure I'm get myself in the right mindset for the situation. I don't want to let people down. So if people come, whether it's a presentation or whatever it might be, and I don't want to let myself down. So I think, okay, the worst that can happen is I don't do this at the best of my ability, but next time I will do. So I need to embrace it and learn from the experience. And I think just allowing myself, I guess, the opportunity to maybe fail a little bit. I think that is, people feel uncomfortable with failure. But I kind of put it into perspective, the situation I'm about to go into. So what is the worst thing that could happen if I don't do this 100%, or some of my inexperience shines through? But I've also found that when I've gone into situations where I probably have come across a bit inexperienced, people seem to warm to that sometimes, bizarrely. Because they can see you're letting yourself be seen and you're being really authentic. There's no bravado. That's definitely something I would say people get with me. What you do see is what you get. And I think that almost people warm to that. And I kind of feed off that and instantly relax in the situation. So I think there's probably a mixture of things in there. Mindset is definitely key to that, though.
Yes, but I'm hearing you really helpfully describe some of the other things, like the really thorough preparation, and asking that question of yourself up front: what's the worst could happen? Let's look at that, and then presumably afterwards you think, okay, well, maybe that didn't happen, or maybe that went better than I expected. And it's that process of training our brain to say, okay, let's look at the whole picture. So what could go well, what couldn't go well. Might not go well, but then also reflecting on it again afterwards. And as you say, learning from that for the next time you're in a daunting situation. And I love the point you make about, being perhaps less confident about something or less experienced about something actually is a way that is something that helps other people warm to you, because I don't know if I'm alone, but if I see people or colleagues or whatever who just look 100% professional, 100% on it, know what to do and everything, it's just quite daunting, frankly. And I feel a bit relieved when someone fesses up and says, gosh, I felt a bit nervous about that meeting, or I'm not sure, I was on slightly flaky ground there. Think, oh, thank God they're human. You can identify a bit with each other, can't you?
Yeah, I think so. I did actually a presentation last night, and I was told it was at university. I was told there'd be possibly about 100 students attending, and business people from the marketing community that they operate in. And the room was packed, so there were probably well over 400 people sat in the auditorium. And for me, I just kind of, people were there to see myself and a number of other speakers. And I hate presentations. I'll be really honest with you. I get so nervous. But I do as many of them as I can, because that encourages me to improve, hone in my skills, and push myself outside my comfort zone again. And most people probably think that's really peculiar. So if there's something you really hate, you kind of get quite anxious about. Why on earth would you put yourself in that situation where you then go and do it in front of quite a large group of people? But for me, I always come away thinking, I did that, I finished that, I did what I set out to do, and I can do that again. And I think if you don't embrace firsts of everything, there'll be so many things you look back in life and think, oh, I just wish I'd done that. So for me, I think there's always a first to everything you do in business, and you've just got to decide whether you're willing to do it. And for me, I usually am willing to do it and give it a go.
Yeah, you sound like you've got a great spirit of curiosity and adventure that's been a real asset in your career, but in life as well. And that's wonderful. That's great advice, to think about it as being up for embracing a first and then deciding where you go from there. And tell us a bit about your role currently at Green Park. What does it involve, and how do you help the organisation to succeed, but also, I guess, the people that are working in there?
I think for me, the reason why I joined Green Park, just to give a little bit of context, is it has a wonderful purpose. So I am drawn to organisations where I feel it's trying to do something for the greater good. And Green Park is about trying to change the way the face of leadership. It's trying to create a fairer workforce, and give more people opportunities. So that really resonates with me. So it almost makes my job much easier in a sense that I believe in its purpose, and I find that really easy to sell. And what I mean by selling is, in a marketing role, you have to be passionate about the role you're in and the organisation you're in order for people to see it authentically come across. Um, so for me, my role is really marketing the business. But what I've done since I've been there, I've only been there 12 months, is bring in new areas of expertise. That the company has lots and lots of expertise. Probably what we weren't doing is showcasing the amazing people in the business. So one of the things I've done is looked across the business, and said, look, you could be a great speaker. If people just hear you speak the way I do, they'll just see what this company has to offer, because there's so many wonderful brand ambassadors within Green Park. So that's one of the things we've done, and that's why we did a conference this year, because we've got a number of people who can really demonstrate the expertise we have, but equally show the DNA that's within the organisation, of why DNA is important to everyone who sits in that Green Park office. So I do the marketing role. I have a team, small team. I used to lead a team of about 100 people. I now lead a team of 5 of us. But I also do things around product development, partnerships. So since I came in there, I've actively looked for partners who are aligned with our own values, and look to see where there is mutual opportunity. And I've really enjoyed doing that. I love working with other stakeholders outside the organisation as well, to see where there's mutual and common ground. So I guess my role, although initially was probably more so about coming in and doing marketing, I think, as I do with all my jobs, I've kind of gone in and took on a few other additional roles, because the company itself makes it easy for you to go and do that. People are allowed to go and experiment, be creative, innovate, because it's quite a small organisation. I'm very fortunate that I can go and try some new things on behalf of Green Park.
Yes, and I'm really interested to hear about how you described, reaching out to colleagues and inviting, encouraging them to be brand ambassadors. It sounds like you're a bit of a kind of like a talent scout internally, which is seeing people who can really, engage, I guess, clients, prospective clients, partners, who perhaps aren't doing that in a certain way, but you're encouraging people to step up and be involved in a more externally facing way, and, as you say, help get across the brand of the company. And is that right? Have I kind of described it right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody within the organisation, so there are a number of people who are, I would class as client facing. So in their roles, they would go out and talk to clients. I guess what I'm looking for within the business is people who can do that at scale. So maybe do a speaker slot. So I look at someone and think, you've got a vast amount of experience. How do I get that out of your head and demonstrate that to other people, how wonderful your experience is and your knowledge is? So I kind of look across everyone in Green Park to see how I can bring some of their experience and knowledge to life, so that more people can hear it and share it. So they're definitely very comfortable going out and talking to clients. What I'm trying to do is do it at scale, is probably the opportunity I'm trying to see within those individuals.
Yes, that makes sense. And speaking of doing things at scale, you mentioned briefly you're a conference. So we're recording this in early November, and the conference took place in October. And We had previously chatted just before that when you were full on preparing for it, but it was hugely successful. So just tell us a little bit about what the purpose of that was and how that went.
I think the conference was, again, being uncomfortable with trying to do something different for Green Park. There's definitely a common theme I suspect you're picking up with me and my style at the moment. And they hadn't done a conference, but again, I felt it was an opportunity to showcase the expertise within the business in a different way. So one thing I've done when I came into Green Park is I asked if value could be put in my job title, because for me, I wanted to demonstrate that marketing is more than being seen as a department that, used to be the crayon department, I used to get told. And I felt that it was important that value was part of my whole role. And it was brought into everything we did. I've looked at different ways for us to demonstrate our value as an organisation beyond almost a transaction or a relationship with a client. So I looked at how can we support them in their journeys that they might have. So if you looked at our executive search part of the business, people might be hiring people in because they want to create a more inclusive environment within their workforce. So they're looking beyond maybe a group of people that they would normally have looked beyond because they're looking for talent in a different way. Um, but for me, I think it's important that we then support them in how do you do that at scale to create a different culture. So the conference was a way to actually run some sessions on things around diversity and how it can impact culture. AI in particular in diversity and inclusion, where does that fit? Does it have a role to play? What role does it have to play in talent? So we looked at sessions around AI so we could actually knowledge share. But I think one of the things I was really keen to do with the conference, and also my CEO was actually it wouldn't be, none of it could be a sales pitch. It had to be genuine information sharing, getting experts across various fields to come and talk about best practice, but more actionable insights. So we were really clear with all the sessions that we ran is at the end we needed to have some sort of takeaways so that people who listened to the session could then either take one or two steps once they'd heard each of the sessions that we ran. And as a result of that, we've created some takeaways for each of the sessions. So people can pick and choose. We certainly don't expect people to go away and do 12 different programs of work. But what they might do is take one of those sessions and think, actually, there were 2 or 3 things that I could implement within my organisation, probably within the next 6 months. And we wanted to enable them to do so by giving them some expertise from people who've done it and gone through that experience themselves. And people then associate more with that because they can see people have done that journey themselves. So we had some case studies in there. We had some research to back up the business reasons for why people need to think about D&I in particular. So for us, the conference was a really great way to demonstrate not only our expertise, but also we are in a position to facilitate bringing like-minded people together who are willing to share their own knowledge and experience for the greater good and for helping other people along their own journey.
Yeah.
And I feel like the feedback we got did actually show that we did that quite well.
Oh, well done. And I love that simple, in a way, design of just saying there's going to be something very practical from each session and then making all those practical approaches or actions available to people, because it really makes a difference between going to an event where you have really interesting, thought-provoking conversations, maybe feel very inspired, but then actually doing something about it back home in your own organisation. And what are you hearing and seeing about what different firms are focusing on around leadership and diversity and inclusion? How is that, I guess, agenda evolving? Was there 1 or 2 things that really struck you as a result of the conference?
I think the key thing is data. So how to collect data, because some people don't start doing anything in the D&I space because they don't know where they're at. So they know they might have a problem, but they don't know what that problem is or how big a problem that is. And equally on the flip side of that, they don't know where the opportunity is and where some of their strengths are. One of the best ways to do that is collate that evidence, get some data, get some sentiment analysis from employees if they want to look within their own organisation. But actually capturing that data, people find really hard. So I hear it probably in nearly every conversation I have in my own network, that almost is the barrier for many organisations. For me, I think the key thing is accept that. And it probably goes back to my whole analogy around, try those firsts, because unless you do it and start that process of trying to collect data, you can only then move forward. So even if you only got 10% of the data you needed, you're 10% further down the line than you were before you started the journey. So I think data is pretty fundamental for most organisations, but knowing where you are enables you to work out where you need to get to. So that is definitely something that we're hearing still, unfortunately, around D&I, but there are tools to do it. So the biggest benefit and the beauty of this is actually there are solutions out there and organisations like ourselves that can help with that. But it definitely still is a big challenge, I would say.
Yes, yeah, it's interesting to hear that, and some organisations have made great strides in collecting data. Others, as you say, may be feeling this is a challenge we need to get our teeth into, and it feels quite difficult. And it's very much a journey, isn't it? Even the ones that have been doing it for a while definitely didn't start out with, in 1 year getting all the data that they wanted. That was meaningful, that they could use in some way. So I love that practical encouragement to just get started, because even that is progress, and you build, I guess, each year in terms of the quality of the data and how you're using it. That's fantastic. And you've got a series of diversity and inclusion roundtables coming up early in 2024. That's kind of building on the success of the conference. Do you want to say a word about that, in case people listening might be interested to find out more?
Thank you. So again, going back to the theme of the conference and why we wanted to do that, I was really keen that we just didn't do a conference and then that was the end of the conversation. So we are doing a series of roundtables next year, which builds on continuing the conversation. So we're going to take sessions that we did in the conference and actually explore some of those areas in more of a deep dive way. So we will be hosting a number of roundtables. We'll be promoting those on our website. And if people are interested in some of the subject matters that we'll be talking about, they can have a look at them and just let us know they would like to participate. And depending on what the outcome is, we might do a number of roundtables. We'll see what the interest is and appetite is for some of the subject matters. But we're really keen to keep moving things forward. So rather than do another conference next year, which we will do, we'll have some different subject matters in there, I suspect. But I think it's important that we continue the conversations that we had from the beginning. Otherwise, people forget about them. And what we want to do is actually make change happen. And that won't happen if you then start back with another subject matter. Because people will think and forget about the first area that you spoke about.
Yes, just building that momentum, keep nudging the conversations and the actions along. Great. Well, I'll include a link, obviously, to Green Park's website in the show notes. And if people are listening, and wish you best of luck with the series of roundtables, sounds a great way to follow on from all the conversations and ideas and exchanges of experiences at the conference. And if people listening want to get in touch with you professionally, follow your work, what's the best way for them to do that?
Definitely via LinkedIn. I'm very happy to connect with people. Just drop me a little note saying what you'd be interested to find more about. But always happy to meet up with people who want to do more in the D&I space, want to find about what Green Park are up to and what we can do for them. But also if people think there is an opportunity to work together. So I think the only way we'll accelerate change is if people work alongside other organisations and not try and do it on their own. So I'm also happy to connect some of the dots for people if they want to know if there's another organisation who's in a similar boat. and they would like a bit of help. So definitely LinkedIn would be a great way to start.
Great. Well, I'll put the link in the show notes, and thank you for that very generous offer to help direct people, connect people to other people that might be helpful to them. Sharon, it's been such a pleasure talking with you about your career, about the agenda and your role at Green Park, and how things are progressing in terms of changing the face of leadership. I think three of the things that I'm really taking away from our conversation are, thinking about different ways to demonstrate our expertise as individuals, but as teams and organizations. Definitely about kind of how to deal with the unexpected and getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I love your kind of philosophy of embracing firsts as well. That's a great mindset to take into any new opportunity or challenge. So thank you so much for being a brilliant guest.